Hey guys, Thomas the Solid Genie here, aka Mustached Tom, here to review the movie Barbie. If you end up enjoying this full movie review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out those links in the description. One, will head over to my petition to help out smaller YouTubers. Second and third, to my Patreon and PayPal, where you can help support me and my channel directly. And fourth, to my Discord server, where you join, collab, and chill, and all that cool stuff. And chilling will be reminded at the end of the review. With all that out of the way, let's get into Barbie. So, first and foremost, I've seen the trailer for this movie, I want to say 2 or 3 times before seeing the movie, and thusly, after seeing the movie, I decided to take a peek at some of the reviews on both sides of the political aisle on this movie before, putting this review together to correctly assess that the conservatives were going to hate this movie and people on the left are going to be a little bit more forgiving, but still on, it's okay. Be like it's more on the okay side. That assessment was not surprisingly accurate to a 1-to-1 of what I was expecting that would happen for a movie of this caliber, especially after watching it and seeing the heavy, sort of deeper messages that this movie is clearly trying to illustrate, particularly later on in the movie. So it is quite the interesting movie to dissect, I suppose, in that regard. And I guess I'll just throw my 2 cents in and be as objective as possible while going through the movie and talking about, these deeper themes, as it were. And I'm going to go through the movie chronologically while also sporadically throughout the movie, or review in particular, going over parts that I do think that could have been improved upon, because I'm here to also say that I do think that there are meaningful parts in this movie. I just think that, again, interestingly enough, the ending is probably where a lot of that is going to come into fruition of what I'm trying to get at here. Anyway, the movie starts off, well, interestingly, I suppose, with this narration about while these little girls are playing with the dolls, and thus Barbie comes along, and once the girls see that this Barbie has appeared, they begin to thrash their dolls against the rocks. Now, this is appealing to sort of the commercialism of the earlier years, especially for girl-based commercials, for those of you who might not have been around. I remember this, quite frankly, being someone who grew up in the 1990s. There were quite a number of girl-based commercials that were insistent that girls, in particular, needed to be groomed to be mothers, and thus they were given baby dolls to sort of simulate this activity between, the threshold, without expressly saying that you have to all the stuff that goes into baby making and all that. So sweep that part under the rug for now, but just appeal to the idea of motherhood, and at the time that did seem to resonate with a lot of little girls at the time. And what is fascinating is that over time, and what science has actually proven, is that if you give enough stimuli to, say, for example, we'll just stick with it, girls in this case, if you were to show girls, in this case, a picture of 2 scientists, and one is a girl, interestingly enough, just as fascinatingly enough, they will be more inclined to be like, ah, I can do that at the time. This is, again, talking about girls, not women in particular, because I know that that threshold is going to confuse people, maybe. I don't know, for whatever reason. Anyway, so it is quite fascinating how the movie is saying, like, it's opening up saying this idea that this is the only thing girls can be. That is incorrect. Which is, I think that is an admirable thing to strive for. Like, that is not the end all be all thing. There are various things you can be in real life as of now. Uh, so, yeah, you could be able to strive for those things, is the appeal, though. Being able to see those things in media. And conservatives are all about anti wokeness, so I find it fascinating that they're the ones complaining. And it's like the opening kind of mocks this in a way that's like, oh, so you didn't even understand the opening sequence at the very most. Okay, well, I see. I get it. You're gonna claim the movie as woke and not understand why diversity in general is actually important. Because there's no, as far as I'm concerned, there's no distinction between diversity and the term wokeness. At least when conservatives use it, it's interchangeable at this point to me. Whenever I hear a conservative say, because I've heard conservatives say when I was watching the reviews that this movie is woke. So they're saying this movie is diverse. It has a diversity quota. It has a diversity agenda. And it's like, well, yeah. Do you understand the importance of diversity and showing diversity, especially to a younger audience? Because it's been scientifically proven that they are more likely to be in favor of going, I can be that thing, or that's not so scary simultaneously. So it actually reduces homophobia, transphobia, except it reduces racism, it reduces all these types of things because you're being exposed to those different types of things. Diversity isn't just about wanting to see yourself in a movie, for example. And there is still an appeal to that for some people. That's not what I'm here to argue, but rather what's more important, from what I'm seeing, is that it's actually what other people are seeing. And is when it's other people are saying, that thing is acceptable. That thing isn't as scary. Like Nimona, like that movie, is very indicative of trying to get people from the outside to understand this is what trans is like. This is what the issue is like. Here is how you understand this from our perspective, or from this particular perspective. This is just another variation of life that is present in our reality, and it's completely fine. That's all that movie was trying to do, as an example. And even within that vein of diversity, I find it because Barbie is tackling the different types of jobs that women can appeal to, which I'll get to in just now. So what's fascinating to me, and where I think the criticisms should actually be lying, is that, fascinatingly enough, a lot of those jobs are already covered. And a lot of the jobs that are more male-led are, led by the Kens in the movie. And by the end, there is no distinctional difference between the beginning of the movie and the end of the movie. And that is the actual true criticism you should be able to arrive at if you're following the movie along properly and as objectively as possible, while also considering what the movie's actually trying to say simultaneously. I know, it's a bit of a challenge, but I got there. So, anyways, excuse me. So, the narration is indeed talking about how girls, through the Barbie dolls, can achieve any goal. However, I found one thing particularly fascinating about when they mention this. So, they mention how there's the madam, the president one, the doctor one, real Barbies that are in the Barbie line, as it were. So these are all things that have all been achieved, in our timeline of history. But what's fascinatingly missing are all the jobs where Barbie is doing something a bit more masculine. Traditionally masculine, I should say, rather. There's no car repairing Barbie. There's no gamer Barbie. There's no, there's no, as far as I could tell from the movie, other jobs that I'm pretty sure, like, there's no wrestling Barbie. There's no sports related Barbie, at least from what I could tell. There might have been one, but it might have been more in a female related, a classically seen female related sport, like tennis, perhaps. Again, that is just appealing to the old school way of seeing things. So, again, I find it fascinating because this movie seems to align with the conservatives at the beginning and ends with the status quo should be remained. I'm just gonna point that out. If their whole shtick, if their main criticism is that this is like super third wave feminism, which is where their criticisms are lying, and that this movie truly hates men, to the extent that they believe that it holds, then that would not only would have been appropriate at the beginning of the movie served, but be withheld at the end of the movie, and that being withheld. But that is something that is more so set up later on in the movie, anyway, and we'll get to that part. So, anyways, as she is going about her day, as we follow the main Barbie, stereotypical Barbie, as she's referred to in the movie, by others anyways. So, we see how the world around the Barbie world operates, the fake water, the fake food, the fake water, and how they just sort of, walk around and are doing these basic introductions and keeping everything pretty basic. And we even see that there are definitely discounted Barbies. The pregnant Barbie is one of them that they legitimately put in the movie. Be like, yeah, it's so fascinating that one's in the movie, because it's like, yeah, we're cool with moms, we just don't want to show moms being pregnant. It's like, oh, okay. That's sort of like the end of the argument, I guess. I don't know. And while that's going on, we head over to the court, and they're like expressing how one is holding logic and feeling side by side, and how that is able to expand upon their own individual interest. And I think that line is vehemently there to be like, I don't know, I think that line's almost there to be like, see, Ben Shapiro specifically, you're wrong about the facts, don't care about your feelings, catchphrase, that's just incorrect. Which, by the way, his logic is incorrect. Spoiler alert. Despite, the faults of this movie, I will say that that line got a laugh out of me because I was like, ha, that movie agrees that you're just wrong about what you said. Anyway, or what you consistently try to say anyway. So, anyways, getting back to the movie, the Kens, there are various Kens, like there are various Barbies. The Kens in this case are at the beach, or the majority, or if not all of them are, I guess, um, waiting for the Barbies just to sort of say hi. Now, the contention here is that the Kens are, they represent the men of the world, and even though the Kens are part of Barbie's female toy line, so I'm not sure what that's supposed to suggest. I don't know if the conservatives thought that one through when they were thinking about that one, or like how, the men are so stupid in this world, and it's like, well, it's from the perspective of it's being played, it's likely being more played to by girls, including the Ken dolls, more likely than a boy would be. More likely back then, anyway. In the day. I mean, if anything, right? The boys, traditionally speaking, would be playing with, you guessed it, G.I. Joe. So, I know, right? Oh my god, I made the distinction. Whoopsie doodle. I revealed that whole thing. Even though there were probably switches among them, in more, because that's just how reality works sometimes. Some people just play with whatever. But anyway, that's what marketing would have shown for the majority of people anyway, are boys and girls, differentiating them. So anyways, Ken, the main Ken, I guess stereotypical Ken as it were, is wanting to impress the main Barbie. Stereotypical Barbie, that is. And so he goes to try to hit the water, and indeed, since this world is made out of, like, plastic or whatever it's made out of, he sort of hits off of it instead. And shortly after his quick recovery, the Kens are about to have what they're referring to as a beach off. So yeah. Anyway, but after that, the main Barbie, stereotypical Barbie, is wanting to have a house party, which is, I guess, a traditional thing, as they suggest in the movie. And main Ken wants to join in, feeling this sort of need to be a part of this party. So she invites him anyway, as a friend, suggestingly. But during this party, subsequently speaking, Barbie suddenly and abruptly brings up dying. Because that's where this movie is indeed going. But she tries to play it off like she's just dying to dance. And Ken wants to stay overnight because he only believes that the traditional roles are the only way. It must be him and her. They must end up together. This must be so-called destiny, as it were. But she sort of, like, leaves him off anyway, regardless. So near her sleep, she mentions death again, so she's not feeling it. And even more so, the next day seems the routine that she's going through seems even a bit more off. And this end result with her being quote-unquote flat-footed, as it were, because the high heels that she would typically wear would have her feet sort of hovering upward, so now she's being flat-footed. So the others suggest that the stereotypical Barbie is finally the one that is malfunctioning. And this has actually happened once before, which, interesting enough, not a single conservative got this right, because they all mentioned how this has never happened before. They all lied in their reviews, or they misheard, because it has happened once. At least once before. Historically, that is in the movie. So I'm here to make that correction in this review on that behalf, just so all the facts are on the table. So, anyways, regardless, so they need to visit, or she wants to visit who is known as Weird Barbie. This is a particular Barbie who has been messed with, more so probably than most. So what I'm assuming, based off of this level of information, is that, like, you can have more than one person can get a type of Barbie, and you can get tied to one person though too simultaneously. That part's a little bit wonky, sure. So whatever. Anyway, so main Barbie, when given the Matrix choice, which actually happens earlier in the movie, so people, certain reviewers were odded out by the Matrix stuff later in the movie, were like weirded out, but it happens earlier in the movie, so they're just setting it up for a payoff here. So the setup here is that Weird Barbie suggests two different shoes, a glossy pink shoe or the brown shoe of reality, and Barbie immediately chooses the pink shoe, and Weird Barbie keeps saying that this was meant to be the illusion of choice, because you're going to do the other thing. Excuse me. I do think that could have been portrayed a little bit better, or perhaps a little bit more cleverly here. Getting Barbie to switch over to the more complex choice on her own volition, I think would have been an interesting writing decision, but here we are, but I digress. So, it is indeed confirmed here that her human girl is getting sad, and so that they have this connection between toy and human, so that is why she's been receiving these changes in her own behavior as of recently. At any rate, so this is where main Barbie, wants to head into the real world. So she goes and travels by various means, and along the way Ken inevitably ends up joining based off of some better whatever it was that got him here. Excuse me. So, as they enter into the real world, the people, generally speaking, are looking at, by the way, both of them, not just Barbie, but yes, one man does particularly decide to spank Barbie's butt. But yes, I like how the conservatives are like, oh, this world is cruel and inhumane. It's like, well, they were both being checked out on. You do realize that, right? I'm just gonna point that out. Like, despite the over-cartoonish version of the real world, or wherever this is taking place, I don't know what state this is in. Probably somewhere in the country, or not countryside, but a city side where there's a shoreline. I'm not sure where that would be conceptually. I'm not sure if they ever stated in the movie. I don't remember. But the distinction is that Barbie feels self-conscious, even though she never reaches that conclusion quite yet, while Ken, by comparison, does not. He feels empowered by the notice, by the, as we'll see later on in the movie, the patriarchy as the movie will set up later on. And yes, that is the literal thing. Like, he literally picks up a book called something rather patriarchy or whatever. Um, so while they're walking along, and I think they got like arrested at in between these points, and like they were let go relatively early, and then like they like get arrested again or whatever. I think that either happens before or during or after this section. Anyways, these construction workers are like catcalling. Again, I think they're more focused on her, but there seems to be a general look at both of them in a way. And Barbie mentions how she does not have a vagina, and that Ken does not have a penis because they are based on the dolls, and that is accurate. That, well, to the dolls anyway, and specifically, and the construction workers are like, yeah, we don't really care, whatever. Attraction is attraction at the end of the day, right? Sort of that vibe. So yeah, this, I think it's after she's spanked in the butt, because I think that happens after they get hit on. They proceed to get arrested for punching the guy, and then get arrested again for like stealing clothes, because they don't understand the concept of money yet. So as Ken, he's actually the one who's insisting on leaving initially. By the way, it's not Barbie. Another thing that I noticed every conservative say, "Oh, Barbie's like, oh, get out of here." Ken's actually the one who suggested first, I'm gonna go leave and check out the library or something or other. He was the one who mentions it first. So I'm like, okay. And then in contention with that, Barbie's like, yeah, go do whatever. I need to concentrate anyway because I want to find this girl that I'm connected with. So I don't really get that criticism either. Anyway, so he is absorbing the world around him, and all the while, Barbie is noticing that the girl that she's starting to have visions of has grown up to a teenager, or that's what she's suspecting is the case anyways initially. So she begins to cry, and sees this old woman and says that she is beautiful. And she's like, yeah, I know, thank you. So anyways, Ken proceeds to lead her, by the way, to the next location. But now the movie cuts away to the business that has made the Barbies and the Kens, and it's reiterated here that this has happened again before. It just wasn't as a big of a deal because it didn't have to do with the main Barbie or the main Ken, or more so the main Barbie. So yes, they repeat that here, that it has happened indeed before. So this guy named Aaron goes to the top guys at the top floor. And their distinction here is that they want to place Barbie back into the box, which they seem to suggest like that is the solution to this for whatever reason. Meanwhile, Ken goes to the library, which is where he picks up the 3 books. One of them, as I mentioned, includes the idea of patriarchy. One of them deals with horses, and the other one deals with something else. I actually don't remember the 3rd book, if I'm being completely honest. So, Barbie goes to this teenager, and who I believe her name is Sasha. and this other girl's like warning her, like, hey, this girl's gonna eat you out or whatever. So Barbie confronts Sasha regardless, and she's like, hey, I'm Barbie, blah blah blah, uh, don't you girls, don't you specifically want to play with me? And the girl retorts that, well, actually, you have been this idealized commerce, not commerce, what's the word? Commodified for money, essentially, and you have actually just as much held us back, rather than moved us in any real degree forward. And goes as far as to say that Barbie is a fascist. So that is her actual line of dialogue in the movie. So yeah, obviously this idea is very flawed, and I think that's like the point of this scene, is that Barbie still believes what she is being told, except the whole fascist thing, because she somehow understands what fascism is at this point in the movie. I don't know about that whole bit, but whatever. Anyway, so while that's going on, Ken begins looking for a job. He goes to like 3 different locations, and is trying, with the patriarchy book in mind, trying to use that to his advantage to try to get a job. And it's like, well, no, it's not actually how it works here. You actually have to have some level of, experience in any job requirement, which is just, that is a deeper part of reality. So it's weird that that would be criticized, but I'm pretty sure it was, for whatever reason. But no, more so that when he addresses the third person in the business suit, that the guy there suggests that they've just gotten better at hiding that this world, this version of Earth, is still living in the patriarchy as an overall, the majority of the U.S. seems to be in this sort of more hidden patriarchal system. And in case people are confused, what I mean by patriarchal system is a system primarily run by men, and in a specific sort of way that stereotypical men would run, and the matriarchy would be woman-led. So, like, for example, outside of Barbie, that would be like the Amazonians, or like maybe perhaps some of the women from Sparta, or like these older stories that you may have heard of, like of a more matriarchal system. I think the Amazonian one is more, prevalent here in this instance, just to be like, yep, that's what that could look like. Anyway. So, the thing about that is that this movie seems to infer that the Barbie world is a matriarchal system in the movie's context. In the real world, is still in this hidden patriarchal system. And by the end of the movie, again, that is what's fine, actually. Again, interestingly enough, that is what's being criticized, but the takeaway is, like, they're trying to get rid of the patriarchal system, but it's like, well, no. At the end of the movie, they settle for the status quo, though, So they're settling for the patriarchy system being in tow by the end of the Barbie movie. The line is actually consistently consistent. So I'm baffled by this criticism again, and I'm gonna point it out again. Anyway, so Ken wants to go back to Barbie Land, uh, and instead, and we proceed to follow Barbie again as we meet with Sasha and we see her mom, who picks her up at this point. The mom seems to be instantly invested when she sees Barbie's being arrested. Uh, and so now we're getting the clues and hints and the reveals that it was the mom that was the one that was the one she was focusing on. Anyways, they finally get to her, the business people, whatever mill group this is, and they bring her back, and they're suggesting to go back in the box, but she insists that they should wait for Ken, and even they are like, well, Ken's not that important. And here is where we get our insistence that these men at the top are actually, they're in favor of the, gender equality, is how they have, how their top business was led by women, that being the creators of Barbie in the first place, and the main holder of Barbie. On top of their having gender neutral bathrooms in their business, which is, how every public bathroom should be at this point, but we're embarrassing behind on that one. I don't know. Like, that one's kind of embarrassing that we're still having that issue. By the way, the whole bathroom issue has been a thing since I was in high school. That was an issue that was brought up in 2009. We are in 2023, and that shit still hasn't been resolved for public bathrooms. It's like, how the fuck have we not moved the needle? That's embarrassing. This is something America should be embarrassed by. Damn, public businesses, y'all fucked up on that one. I mean, every open bathroom that's not a public bathroom is gender neutral. Literally every single one. They just stink. That's the downside of those ones. And there's the bathrooms at your own house, which your own household decides, who gets what bathroom. That's a different solution. So it's baffling that, again, we have yet to arrive at the correct course for, I don't know, the majority of again, publicly run bathrooms or whatever. Anyway. So, Barbie has second thoughts, so before going into the full box, she starts running, and yeah, I will be on board with everyone essentially criticizing this scene, where they're just sort of running around and not even attempting to capture her. It just looks bad. Nothing about it seems like, and I think like they are trying to play this off like they're becoming, since like their worlds are like interfering with one another, that this business in particular, are becoming more like the Barbies or the Kens of their world. Which seems to become more and more true later on. I guess this is supposed to be like the first moment of that, I think. That's like the only thing I could see as a potential like solution here, but other than that, it's pretty bad. Anyways, she enters a long hall, and she enters a room where she meets another old woman. This woman is named Ruth, and Ruth is the creator of Barbie. And this is where she starts to reveal some pertinent information that Barbie was never meant to be something that was driven to be like, how it was modeled physically wise. Like, that's not what was supposed to drive girls, but it rather aiming toward, again, what the jobs were, and like insisting, like, hey, girls can do these particular jobs too. That was like sort of the driving force behind the initial Barbie, and that's what she seems to emphasize here. Um, and that it was in line with her having her own daughter and wanting, and indeed her own daughter was named Barbara, which is where the name Barbie derives from. Um, so it seems to be interconnected with this the creator here. Anyway, so after she escapes, the mom picks up Barbie and they begin to drive faster. The mom insinuates that she is seeing somebody else on the side potentially here. I guess she like slips out that bit of information. It's like, oh, okay. Um, all the while, this is where we clearly see that Ken is becoming the antagonist as he makes his way back to um, the Barbie world and takes over while all of this is going on. He's introducing the patriarchal system to all the other Kens. They're eating it up. And by virtue of this, the women, or the Barbies in this case, are seeing the complicity within that system, and they're like, yeah, we're fine with that. And they, as people have put it, or the movie even puts it, they have been brainwashed into believing that this is the right way to go about this. That, again, the traditional way, and even probably traditional in like a even more nonsensical way, because it's like they're only seemingly getting the Kens like alcohol or whatever. That's like the only thing they seem to want, or they do. So this is Ken's revenge for being cast aside earlier in the movie. And he puts his shades on his shades. Like he double stacks some shades on shades, yo. We then get how we cut to how the mom wants to change, or how she's talking with Barbie about how, life is all about change, and this deeper stuff that the movie is actually good at talking about it. Ironically, when the movie is preachy, is actually the inverse of every criticism I've heard, because I've heard everyone saying, oh, the preachiness of the movie, and that's what makes it bad. No. The preachiness is actually what saves this movie. It's actually everything else at the end that doesn't save this movie. So I have the inverse criticism of everyone else in this case. Because I actually do think that that is a meaningful thing to, incite, that life is indeed all about change. And indeed, as we get older and as generations, pass, and how knowledge shifts and change and gets more robust, things evolve, things do indeed change, they are not stagnant, and even in that, everything changes in the most literal sense. So again, very meaningful stuff here. Anyway, they get we cut to like this sort of commercial aspect of like how what their worlds are like colliding is doing to the commercialization. And the whole the Ken stuff is like, bumping up because of all of the stuff that's happening in the Barbie world. Uh, so anyways, the Barbie realizes that she needs to help the mom. Or rather, the daughter wants to help the mom at this point, finally. So, seeing how these diverging paths are, you know, breaking it into one another, Barbie assumes that she is the one who wants to bring the other two back to her world. So they travel back, the three of them. And once they do, the mom and her have a meaningful discussion about, like, how, how Barbie is seeing herself as not pretty anymore. And then, yes, this is where the narrator literally cuts into the movie and says that this particular part probably not best suited for someone like Margot Robbie, who looks very attractive, to be saying this particular part. It's sort of like a downhand compliment and a compliment at the same time. It's so bizarre. I'll definitely agree with that part. It's definitely bizarre because it's a compliment to, again, Margot Robbie's attractiveness, but then it's saying, like, so she's not good for this part, though? Like, her looks somehow affect her skills? Like, what? Again, I don't know. But speaking of, pop, success, I found the whole diversity thing, and just to mention this, because I did want to mention it at some point in my review, since this does deal with certain jobs, for example, and the ones I mentioned that aren't in the movie, like, for example, as a YouTuber, like, say, the whole diversity thing, like, YouTube has been something that has been more commonly seen in movies, in more modern movies in particular, and in every instance, every single one so far, every movie I've seen with a YouTube, based, whatever, it's directly based on a YouTube, like, thematic thing, or, like, they're using YouTube, or, like, some sort of online, like, even Nimona, for example, posting their video online for the world to see, right? Every single story so far, it's always the moment they upload the video, it's an instant success. Every single time. And I'm, as someone who's just talking about diversity, I'm, like, over here as the small YouTuber going, like, where's my story? Where's the story of the small YouTuber who's getting the 3 to, like, 10 views, who's struggling, just absolutely, like me, like the me of the world? Like, I hate this idea that other people that are outside of YouTube are gonna look at these videos and go, oh, it's that easy. No! That's an incorrect take that you're gonna take away if you look at that, because it's not good diversity in terms of a job. Because it's only been portrayed one way, the stereotypical way, the very always successful way. So, again, even in modern Hollywood, or modern movie making in general, that still applies. Like, you can still break diversity apart more than just even jobs are concerned, how you portray certain jobs. I don't think a lot of people get to that conclusion, because I don't think a lot of people think that far. But I'm over here 5-chessing over here, and I'm thinking that far and that hard about it, So yeah. Anyway, so she goes on, and the mom goes on this the lengthy talk about how she in particular was seeing how the world demands this striving for perfection. And this is a part that is heavily criticizing because it's the preachy part of the film, and it's, and it's her really railing against an entire system in tow of this, of being, you have to thread the needle so carefully as a woman, is the crux of the message. Like, it's a long-winded message, but the crux of it is, like, you have to thread the needle very, very carefully as a woman. And I think so many people missed it because they took isolated lines within the context, and they're like, but that one's wrong, and that one's wrong. It's like, well, first of all, it's from her individual perspective, so you're disrespecting this individual woman's take on this take, which is fascinating to me. It's like, oh, okay, well, there's that at first. So I'm not even talking about like feminism in general. I'm just like, so you're willing to downplay the individual's take so far, but even in the way you're doing it, you're completely missing the point of it. From her perspective, you're completely not hearing her perspective. You're completely just so motivated by the other political stuff that's surrounding it, that you're not. It's like clouding judgment. It's so bizarre to me that happened, and it happened on every conservative reviewer I've seen review this movie consistently. It's so baffling to me. It's like, how did that happen? I mean, it's not. That question shouldn't even come up because, of course, they were going to complain about this movie. I'm not even surprised. Even though, like, at the end of the movie's end goal or end statement is like, yeah, the status quo is good. So, the assumed patriarchal system in the real world, if that is the assumed presumption of the conservatives, then that was the status quo. It's not about breaking the status quo, it's about maintaining the status quo. So actually, this movie is pro masculinity. If anything, at the end of the movie, it's pro, patriarchal systems, if anything. Fancy that? If that is your takeaway, if this movie is part patriarchal in nature, then the end result must be this movie is actually simultaneously pro patriarchal systems are good, actually. Bizarre how that happens when you don't pay attention to what you're saying. Oops. Every conservative message messed up on that one. Whoopsie doodle. Anyway. So, anyways, getting back to the movie. Obviously the Kens have taken over, and there are several Barbies that have been made subservient through this, and thus they make a plan to subserve them by feeding them these bits of information that allows them to wake up and realize that they were, again, okay in the position that they were in at the beginning of the movie. And not a single one of them goes like, you know what, I actually want to do something else. That to me would have been the far superior take to the movie. At least one of them. But no, not a single one of them, outside the main character, who goes to the real world for some reason at the end of the movie, and we'll get to that again. It's like, oh, okay. So anyways. So the Barbies are recollecting their Barbies, and so they all have they're free, and so they are using the Ken's ego against each other's Kens to switch off partners in the middle of their 4-hour session songs when they're most invested, to be like, Uh, so the guys will go against the guys at the end of the day, which is why there's more male on male violence. Because it's over a girl, you see. Uh, and I guess that's a simplified joke version of the whole man on man violence, which, it's like, oh, you know, oof. Uh, so yeah, the main Ken, stereotypical Ken, wants to go to war. And by the way, there are like these two songs in the entire movie that are like him singing about something or other. And during this song, it abruptly transitions into this dance off or something. Again, this world gets a little wonky, so I don't know. It's very abrupt. Uh, and after this dance off, he, Barbie like tells him off again. So Ken goes to cry, and Barbie talks to him, and she's trying to suggest that this particular Ken, that she's not interested in this Ken. That that she wants to persist in the friend zone, as it were. And he is at a loss because he feels he needs her. Right? As he puts it, it's Barbie and Ken. And then Barbie says, not quite, it's Barbie and it's Ken. Meaning two separate entities. And just so every conservative apparently missed this, there is a Barbie and a Ken that do hook up at the end of the movie, and that one baffles me that they're willing to criticize, like, oh, this Barbie doesn't get with the main Ken, but it's like, well, one of them did. It's like, okay. So what do you have to say? Oh, not a single one of them are like, oh, that's actually kind of cute, or like, that's actually kind of like neat that they actually addressed, like, that's fine too. The traditional couple thing is fine too. The movie literally ends with that being the case. So I'm baffled again by some of the takes that came out of this movie. They're so baffling to me. Anyways, so we know that the boss of Barbie was like working his way towards there. He got in there for a while, and he comes out, and I will agree that this is a bit of a criticism that is deserved for the movie, that he's abruptly back into the world of capitalism. Like, okay, since he was so insistent earlier that it is actually about having girls, and seeing all those options, and seeing all those possibilities, and seeing what they could become. So that was a weird shift in character. So we cut to Barbie and the creator going off into, I guess, heaven? I don't know. And she insists that Barbie is something that it is something that doesn't end. And while humans may die, ideology is something that lives forever. Rather. So there's that. So Barbie asks here if she wants to become a human. And as she once again crosses over, we get our montage of various women and girls doing various activities. Being like, yep, this is like it's hitting on that bit as well. And it ends with her going to the gynecologist because she got those parts down there, y'all. Or she's going to get them, or whatever. I don't know which one it is, but whatever. Uh, and then the movie ends. And that was Barbie. Uh, and and I didn't go over it, but like some of the Kens came forward at a point, during the whole like closer to the end of the debacle and the whole voting thing, and they're suggesting like, hey, can we have equal power? And it's like, oh, hold on, you can have like a lesser power, but you're still gonna be, this is still Barbie world. This like how the conservatives are insisting that this isn't how the real world is. It's not a patriarchal system, even though the movie is like insisting on the imaginary version of the patriarchal system, and then it ending with the status quo. And it's just like, oh, but they gotta bump up in the job world of Barbie world, I guess. I don't know. They got an improvement. It was something, I think. But yeah, that is, again, another criticism, is that the movie's end in that regard is it doesn't feel like there wasn't enough subversion from the status quo. The status quo being the whole change of life thing. That whole bit feels inconsequential to the end of the movie. It feels like the status quo was what was kept. If you were again insisting that the patriarchal system was what was here in the first place, but then at the end of the movie, that's where we still are. That's insisting that the patriarchal system as is actually fine. Which again, Barbie is now actually pro patriarchal, and I don't think that the writers intended to do that, honestly. And again, I think every conservative missed that thing, if that is what their takeaway was too. If this was truly a takedown of the patriarchy. It's like, no, it's not. They maintain the status quo. What are you talking about? This is maintaining the status quo. This is the opposite of what you're saying. Complete 180. You completely 180'd the movie's ending. What do you mean? So yeah, much preferred Nimona. It is about breaking the system in the proper way. Be like, no, this system's fucked. And actually showing, in line with where we are currently, by the way, way better than Barbie did, of like, the transgender issue, the transsexual issue, which is an ongoing issue right now, and being like, yeah, the system's fucked when it comes to these individuals. It currently is, and this movie's finally like, yeah, the system has been disadvantaging them recently. That is still happening. It is still something that is being fought over right now. That is baffling to me. That is what we should be striving to fix. Maintaining the status quo, kiss my ass. This movie has it wrong. And the conservatives simultaneously have it wrong because they read it wrong. It's a completely 180 on both ends. It's so baffling that how this happened. That this movie is, again, pro-patriarchal if it's to be read as patriarchal. It has to be, because it ends the same way it begins, or very minor changes. Again, what I would have liked to see is more Barbie, the mother, and how she was talking about change. I think that would have been, more insightful to get that a meaningful ending where she's like, hey, what about, girls taking on, because I'm sure they exist in the Barbie line of like the more masculine jobs of like, taking on the cars, or like the things I was mentioning earlier on, the gamer Barbie, the wrestling Barbie, and that Barbie can even look a bit bulkier. I don't know, like, why not? Like, yeah, why not fight for that? Seems to me like that's what you were trying to get at, but then you backed down. You backed down. At the end, you're like, no, the system is fine the way it is. We're not even gonna bother changing anything. Except very might it's so inconsequential. It's like a baby step. And it's a baby step of a direction that's like it slightly uplifts the Kens in the Barbie world by a baby step. That is the literal end equation of this movie. A baby step is this is almost as bad as The Flash in that regard. Is like The Flash virtually learns nothing. This movie is like, at least give him the baby step. So it's a step up from The Flash, is what I'm saying. So yeah, I'm gonna give this movie a 3 out of 10, or a 4 out of 10, if anything. Maybe, I don't know, maybe a 5 out of 10 because of some of the positive messages that are strewn in here. And again, I do think that those are important to get across. I just think that the end result is what's actually the crux of the issue, and I don't think they do enough to address that issue, and I don't think that they address everything that they were meaningfully attempting to address about like how life has changed and all that stuff, and how that could have carried in a thematic through line in the movie as well to the Barbies in their particular world. So yeah, that is my review of Barbie. And if you ended up enjoying this full movie review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out those links in the description. One will you with my petition to help out smaller YouTubers. Second and third to my Patreon and PayPal, where you can help support me and my channel directly. And fourth to my Discord server. Any donations are greatly appreciated. And until next time, everyone, bye-bye.